Nice.
Hello, and here we are, Bush Whisperer and Tall Tree Show, Part 6. And we're continuing our impromptu discussions with the wonderful Tall Tree here, and myself, the Bush Whisperer. And Tall Tree is a fascinating guy to get to know. He's very in tune with nature. Obviously, he's a full time dad, and he's got an interesting disposition towards the way in which his mind works. I find it excitingly scintillating. And some people were born to understand cosmic things because when the mind works slowly and methodically, it tends to not miss the details. Welcome, dear brother. How are you?
Hey, doing good. Good to be back again. Um, Thanks for the introduction. I really appreciate it. So to dive right in, we're just having a quick talk about this very interesting thing that's happening over here in the States, and I think it's happening elsewhere. Um, but uh, there seems to be some sort of situation centered around like the New Jersey, New York area, where people are people are seeing things in the sky that they don't quite understand. And one of the reasons I'm really interested in kind of following the story is because it's very it's very interesting seeing um, how people they can see something and they can interpret it in a way that is manipulated um, by what they see other people doing, like on their phones and on the internet and things like that. And what I mean by that is that so you go on X or TikTok or something like that, and you see all these content farm channels posting these videos where people are like, "Oh, look, there's a drone in the sky, and it's very low, and it's got all these lights on it." Or look, there's an orb, and it's getting bigger, or it's flashing, or something like that, or it's just an orb, and then it turns into an airplane and has blinking lights and things like this, right? And one thing that's curious is that a lot of these content farm videos don't have an original source, so you can't drill down and find out where this video actually came from. Like I have an X account, right? It's my account. Like I post things on that. It's from me. So if I shoot a video on my phone and then I upload it to my X account, that's that's from me. That's a single point of reference that people can look at, and they could contact me and ask me about this. And a lot of these videos that you see on X, they're not like that. They're from a content farm channel. Anyways, um, when people start looking up into the sky and trying to figure out what they're seeing, uh, if they're not used to that, they're not used to how things look through a phone. And So, for instance, I know I'm kind of rambling here, but for instance, so you remember the fires that occurred in Hawaii? So I was seeing videos of people sharing a video. I think it was from that. I think it was from that, or it was around that time. They were showing a video of like a building that was on fire, or a building that caught on fire, or something like this. And there was a streak, like the fire flared, and there was this streak that appeared and coming out of the fire, and people were saying, "Oh, this is evidence of direct energy weapons." So something in the sky is beaming a laser down or something like that and starting the fire. No, no. What it was is that when you hold your phone, so phones have cameras on the front, cameras on the back. When you hold your phone, you get your greasy mitts all over your phone and over the lens of your camera. And so when you take a picture of light, like fire or the sun, there are these streaks that appear, and that's from the grease on your fingers. I know this because I'm a photographer, and every time I go to take a picture with my phone, the first thing I do is I wipe it. I wipe it off on my T-shirt so I don't have those damn streaks, right? But someone can see, someone can get wrapped up in something like direct energy weapons, which may be a thing, and they see a video and they see the little streak and they put two and two together and then they run with it and then they put it on the internet. People can't really find the source and then they run with it. And it's easy to say that people are idiots. I think that's a little demeaning. I think that people lack discernment. They lack discernment, and they don't necessarily know how to clearly and logically think through something. And it's not that they're dumb; it's like they don't necessarily have all the tools. It's kind of something you have to learn and maybe be taught. Uh, Back when COVID was really raging, that mass hysteria, there was stuff that would pop up online that was unfounded that I like shared around to people, and now I feel really dumb about it, and I wish I hadn't done that. But I was kind of like I was being a little emotional and knee jerky, and just sending it out. But I've learned better, and now now with this drone situation or whatever's going on over there, I can step back and just be calm about it and wait. Don't jump to any conclusions. Just see what comes out, see what people are saying, read as much as you can, listen to all different kinds of perspectives, and kind of build over an overarching idea of what might be going on. And the thing with what's going on over there is that um, there's really no hard evidence, and like our government's not really commenting on it other to say that nothing is really going on, which is a little aggravating. Um, for me personally, what's aggravating about it is that I'm planning on my whole family. We're planning on going over to the East Coast for Christmas. And I absolutely hate flying in airplanes. It's the worst thing. You're in this metal tube that you have no control over, and it's 37,000 feet up in the air, and oof. Um, and so I'm a little concerned because people like what was it? Trump said something. He sent out a tweet which was like, why aren't we shooting these things down? There was already a video being shared online. Yeah, I think it was a manipulated video. It wasn't real of someone shooting at a drone. And then I think there was I just saw a video this morning. I think it was like a senator or something talking about shooting them down. And it's like when you can see so clearly on these videos that what people are taking video of is an airplane, and now they're talking about they're just putting it out there, shooting them down. They're putting shooting and airplane and drone, in the same sentences. It sucks. It's not great to think about, especially when you're like, oh, I'm going to go travel over to the East Coast now.
Do you think though, and this is something that I've observed, I'll give you an example. I noticed it at Occupy, which was why when we did the Bank of Ideas, we took total control of our press. So we had designated press teams, and only certain people were allowed to speak to the press. When the press came into our building, they were very much controlled. Either myself or I would make sure that somebody trusted was next to the reporter and the cameraman at all times, in control of who he speaks to, so that they couldn't interview some random person. And I think that what happens maybe is some Joe Blogs, who's not the wisest, most intelligent bloke on the planet, put some nonsense out there, and the disinformation team goes, "Ooh, let's make this one go viral." That's a great way to debunk it. Let's get 10
So,
really bad videos
yeah,
and make them go viral.
you skipped out. The screen went blank for a second. Can you rewind just a little bit? What you were saying?
Okay. What was the
Sorry.
last thing I said?
You were saying you were doing some activism. Press would come in, and you would be in tight control of who would be able to talk to the press because any Joe Blow could put out nonsense.
Exactly, because Occupy had the problem where they would interview some drunk guy who just happened to walk in, and now he would be speaking for Occupy, and that would debunk Occupy's presence. And this would then be used as a viral cannon to discredit the activist movement. And I think that the same thing could be happening where the disinformation agents take a look and they find, say, the 10 worst videos, which are like nonsense, and push them out there, make them go viral, and ensure that YouTube keeps the better videos hidden.
Yeah.
So, because it's always like this, like let's say, like UFO videos, 90% of people who think they're seeing UFOs are looking at airplanes, right? That's
Something.
like a basic.
Yeah.
I would say, like statistically, most of the time, people going like, "Oh, there's a light up there," and you go, "Yeah, mate, that's an airplane. It's this time of day. Do your homework. There's actually a flight. That's on the flight path of an airplane. It must be a plane."
Yeah.
But there are genuine sightings that then get overlooked because the disinformation campaigns are like promoting those as if to say, "Look at this nonsense. This is what people are looking at." No, that's just some idiot with a camera making up nonsense, filming some airplane that he thinks is a drone, and why is he going viral? That's the question. Why is that video? Who designates which videos go viral?
Yeah. So it's not as if there's not a precedence for people to think that they're seeing weird shit in the skies. I've seen weird shit in the skies. I've seen things that are not airplanes, without a doubt. But and then you have our own government putting out information about like there's like the Tic Tac UFO. I think that it was a Navy pilot or a Navy thing that they were recording that, and I think that guy's been on podcasts and stuff like that. I've probably listened to him. There's without a doubt genuine video and testimony of seeing things in the sky that are anomalous. There's this narrative that there's like a soft disclosure or something like that we're being led to a full disclosure by governments or authorities that that UFOs without a doubt exist and all this sort of thing, and that this drone thing might be a part of it. I think
that's funny.
Yeah, I
People
don't
jump to the conclusion that it's a UFO.
What's that?
That people's first assumption is that it's a UFO instead of it's the blooming government.
Right. Well, one of the things that I've heard that I think I agree with is that one of the reasons that the government isn't really commenting on this is because they absolutely do know about it. They know what's going on, and that they somewhat have control over it. And I think I agree with that. Why? Why would these? If people are seeing things in the sky, why do they have lights on them so that they can be seen by other airplanes? So there's not collisions. Why can't they see them in the daytime? That sort of thing. They don't really act like any kind of UAP or UFOs that I've been aware of. Like, do you know a guy named Chris Bledsoe? He's got a podcast named Bledsoe Said So.
I don't. I can't say I do.
So this guy, his brother, and his dad. Oh God, what? This was years ago, I think. Maybe not too long ago. They had extremely intense experiences with orbs of light and uh, dreams and beings and this sort of stuff. And the this guy was it Bledsoe's ex. You know, you read it, and he talks about, you know, we're coming towards a like a singularity and an understanding of what's happening in the skies, and that it's going to be a tough situation, but there's going to be help, but we got to get through it. And you know, that's like his thing. But when it comes to this, you know, this drone situation in New Jersey, I think it's extremely unhelpful. You know, because people just want to know what's going on, and they want to feel safe, and I, it's frustrating that there's not um, there's not really anybody who it doesn't seem like there's anybody in a position of authority who's coming forward um, and making people feel a little better about the situation. So there could be nothing going on. It really seems like there's something going on. There's there's definitely an aspect of like mass hysteria, and there's definitely an aspect of people not knowing how to use their discernment. But but where everything stops is that no one no one no one knows what's going on, and anyone who knows what's going on, they're not saying anything. And so we're
You know,
yeah.
please do carry on.
Oh, and so I was just saying, like, we're still on this edge of discovery, and it's it really it if it to me it's like evidence of just like the era that we live in right now. We're on this edge of discovery, and it's really uncomfortable. It can be really uncomfortable.
I'll tell you a few things come to mind about this, and I've actually got a clip we can watch, just the front end of, where there's a news reporter for what channel is it? Fox 32 Chicago,
Yeah,
and the reporter is saying categorically that most of these sightings are aircraft, and I find it interesting that she says most,
yeah,
because I believe that is the case. I believe
right.
that there are sightings that can't be accounted for, but most of the sightings are nonsense. And I think this is the problem. Like you say, the hysteria comes from the nonsense, because there are relevant sightings that even members of parliament, politicians have actually, you know, senators have commented on, because they have been given intel about this from the military. And so they are themselves, some people are concerned. But once again, the nonsense is what's covering it all. And it makes me think about the chemtrail phenomenon. So I was researching chemtrails in 2012, 13. Myself and my ex, we had the apps that could follow all the aircrafts around London airspace. We were living in Croydon, and we used to observe the trails being dropped, and we like sort of figured out what was going on, because I'm sensitive to electromagnetism. I could feel when they turned on that thing. I could feel it. I could feel the direction. So I was able to sort of um, align myself with like a compass, and then I aligned myself like a compass, and then we drew a line of my compass alignment, and we got a map, and we followed that line, and it took us to one of the biggest installations of VLF transmission center, where they had 13 towers, 200 meters high, right? Or was it 200 feet high? Anyway, these huge towers that were very similar to the HHARP, that are used to create, according to the official narrative, a screen to bounce radar signals off, so that they can go in an arc for early warning signals for missiles and nukes and such. And so this was a legitimate station. It used an extremely high amount of electricity. We were able to find the information of it, and I found it interesting that I was able to point exactly in that direction. And then we started to categorize when it turned on and when it turned off. And we noticed that when it turned on was literally just after they dropped chemtrails. And we were like, that's interesting. And my ex was a photographer, so she had all these crazy lenses and like really nice top end cameras. She had a few, like $2,000, $3,000 camera with a really nice lens. She was a proper photographer. And so she was able to zoom in and get some really good footage. And we were able to see that that was not a normal airplane. It had a tank on the back. And that was like, wow. Literally, there was a tank on the back of that aircraft. You could see it clearly. She was able to take good photos. And the government was officially saying that there's nothing to see here. There's no such thing as chemtrails. But now, 10 years afterwards, we started noticing that the United Nations were making declarations that they were deciding to go ahead with geoengineering of the weather. And the G10 had meetings, the G7 had meetings, and they voted, and they decided they were going to do a global program for weather engineering. There was a big story in the media about how the the guy Richard Branson, was going to get hot air balloons, and he was going to send this pipe up into the stratosphere to pump out CFCs, metallic particles, nanoparticles, to shield the sun. And all these programs were being funded, and they were suddenly running, and nobody stopped to ask the question, so when did you do the R&D for this? Oh, now all the
We're
time.
doing it right now.
Yeah, we're not doing R&D. We're starting it, and so we've had, like, in Africa, a lot of countries actually creating legal movements in the United Nations to try and stop all the geoengineering, because they weren't allowed to be part of the discussion whether it happens, but it affects the climates in Africa. So all the countries have grouped together. Many countries globally have grouped together with these African countries, and so there's huge coalitions that are fighting this legal mandate, saying that you can't do a G10 vote on something so fundamental. This has got to be like a global decision. And so it is happening. It has been happening. And it's obvious that all those years that the government was lying to us, saying that there's no such thing as chemtrails, that was secret R&D of what they're now doing. And when you look at their R&D or look at their chemtrail programs that they're actually been launching, they are exactly what people have been describing as chemtrails. So I think that the government, and all the governments were involved in this lie, American, British, European. So we can assume quite rightly that the government will not tell us the truth until after the fact. So when I look at it, most likely, where there's a smoke, there's a fire. Most likely, the government is testing some new kind of drone technology. Some people have seen it. It's become a bit of a thing. But now everybody jumped on the bandwagon with a camera, and they're all seeing drones when they're looking at airplanes. And that's a convenient smokescreen to hide
Absolutely.
what's actually going on. And,
Yeah.
and obviously now we're talking about UFOs.
Yeah.
But I did see an orb. Well, I've seen a lot of orbs, but this particular orb that I saw, we watched it for about 15 minutes. And we were on the hill of Croydon, where there's a little forested place. And we were alone up there, and it was getting dark. And it was myself, my ex-girlfriend, and a friend of hers, close friend. And the three of us were there. So myself and two women. And basically, we watched this, what we didn't know what it was. It was this bright light moving through the woods. And we were like, wow, what's this? And it was moving slowly. It looked, to me, it looked like somebody was marching with a pole with like a huge light. And I thought, well, somebody's got a spotlight, or like a huge, massive light that they've, fair enough, a gas light or something on a pole. And it came up the hill towards us, and it came right up to us. It stopped above us. And it was about the size of a football. And the amount of light coming off of that it lit up the whole area. The two girls were shaking, holding on to my back behind me. they were like scared. They were really, really scared. And they were like, oh my gosh, what is this? Oh my gosh, what is this? And I was just relax, just chill. Let's just take stock. Let's see what's going on. And I stood up, and it wasn't far from me. And it lit up the entire area, and it hovered there for about 3, 4 minutes. And then it slowly turned around and went back down its way down the hill. And it was a sphere about that big. And it was like, I would say the amount of light that was being emitted from it was like, we're talking about 100 to 200 watts of light.
Mhm.
A lot of light, at least. It lit up the entire area, and we watched it go away, and they had been genuinely scared. So it was definitely not some like mirage. It
Mhm.
was like we were in the dark. We were sitting there having a little bit of a meditation,
Mhm.
and I'd rolled us a nice number, and we had chilled, and it was a really beautiful sunset. And this thing came up, and we were sitting really relaxed, but it came right above us, and they were like really freaked out. I remember my girlfriend's friend saying, "It's the last time I'm going up there in the night. Definitely not going there again." Because like to this day they don't know what that was. So I do believe that there are these globes. And there was also an interesting report about a globe landing in Manchester Airport, and I've seen different bits of footage.
Metallic
One of
sphere.
the bits of hey,
Something like a metallic sphere.
yeah, and I actually saw some fairly good footage
Yeah.
from a camera at Manchester Airport, and I could see the staff of the airport, different points, like observing this phenomenon. So it wasn't just trick photography. And
Yeah.
then later on, I noticed that that particular film clip disappeared, and all the other film clips that came there were like lights in the sky. So I'm pretty sure YouTube or somebody didn't want that clip to be seen anymore.
Yeah. Well, so the the metallic orb thing is very interesting because I have a friend in Fort Collins who took video on his phone of three metallic orbs in broad daylight, middle of the day. He was in his backyard, saw three metallic orbs moving in the sky, and he took video of it. He actually shared the video with me, um, and he was like, he's like, I don't know what to think. I don't know what to think about it. Like his brain was kind of blown, um, because it's like, right there without a doubt, like, you know metallic circles in the sky floating there. It's not an airplane, not a bird. It's not like any
It
kind of drone that anybody has ever seen before. It was right there.
could it even be helium balloons that are in a silver kind of a balloon with filming equipment? I mean, it could be anything if you think
Yeah,
about it.
yeah. I tend to think that those whatever those things are probably from Earth, or probably government tech, uh, but at a level that's kind of like beyond our understanding of how things work right now, like secret physics, secret math. um, the the orb in the woods thing, um, reminds me of when my wife and I were on vacation. We took a road trip. This is when we lived in California, and we were somewhere in the Sierra Nevadas. Uh, we were we were on a ridge line, um, and we found this really cool camping spot uh, up there in the mountains. And I guess people had already been camping there because there was like a big fire pit with stones, and but we were the only ones there. It was around Christmas time. The weather was actually really nice, and evening was going down, um, I remember the moon was coming up in the east, and the ridge kind of sloped away, so it was just a huge expanse opened up in front of us, and the sun was setting, behind us to the west, and so in the east, where this big expanse was, you get that really beautiful gradient of light, the purples and the pinks as the sun's going down, and then the moon was rising. Oh, it was gorgeous. Um, Around that time, uh, I I caught out of the corner of my eye, coming from the north. I saw a light. Um, at first, I thought it was a star because stars are starting to come out. Uh, but perceptibly, it was getting bigger. I thought, oh, that's interesting. First thing I think is an airplane, right? And I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it, but there's no blinking lights that you see like on the tail and the wingtips. And then, sure enough, and it's low. It's probably a few hundred feet in the air, not a few thousand. It's definitely low. And sure enough, it just comes by. It's a white ball of light, just like this in the sky. You know, no sound, but a white orb of light following north to south along the ridge, just. And Lauren saw it, I saw it, and we were like, "Oh my god, there's a an orb, there's a UFO, there's a light in the sky," and it was like, I mean, it wasn't like nobody was scared. It didn't like stop and approach us or anything like that. It was like really peaceful, but it was really magical. It was really cool.
Yeah, there's something quite interesting. Like I saw what I believe was either a pyramid or a tetrahedron. I never got close enough to it to determine whether it was a pyramid or a tetrahedron
Yeah.
shaped object. And I was with my brother, and we were in the semi-desert of South Africa, a couple hours drive outside of Cape Town, in what we call the beginning of the Karoo.
Mm.
And we had gone to an area which was well known for military testing aircrafts.
Okay.
And we were going to look at minerals and nature, and we were going to camp there. And it was sort of after sunset, before sunset and before dusk, when the skies got that sort of dark sea blue color, but it's still light.
Yeah.
But it's you can still see very clearly, but it's not fully light anymore. Like when it's starting to. And this thing at first was a light on the far horizon. Didn't think too much of it. That light shot up into the air, like became a tiny dot up there, like in 1 second, at which point I was like, And then that light dot just shot down, and it was like a few hundred yards, 200, 300 yards away, maybe even 150 yards, not so far away, to the point where I could see the definition and the shape and the different lights on it. And I was like, I was staring at this. And at that point, my brother said, "Franklin, are you seeing this thing?" I was like, "Yeah, bro, I'm looking at it." He said, "What is that?" I said, but what I noticed, we watched it for about 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
And it did these crazy acrobatic stuff that no aircraft can do. But
Yeah.
I still remember commenting and saying, like, it doesn't look like the pilot knows exactly what he's doing. It
Yes.
looks like when you put a trainee pilot in an aircraft
Okay.
and you tell them, do that, test this, test that, test this. It was like they were testing this thing.
Yeah.
And that's like when you're teaching a pilot how to control something. They have a control system that they would do flight maneuvers. It looked like it was doing testing flight maneuvers as if like they were learning to fly this thing. And I said to him, this is a well-known military testing area. Most likely that is some kind of military tech that we don't know about. It was silent as well because it came quite close. And I want you to understand that in the desert, the Karoo, there's nothing.
Yeah.
It's flat. There's no property. There's no houses. There's no noise. It's a semi-desert. You know how quiet the semi-desert is. There's hardly any birds, man.
Yeah, I know. I've been there.
Any sound far away, you can hear.
Yeah.
Like if an airplane flies past, you can hear it because there's no background sound.
Yeah.
And there was hardly any wind. It was like a perfect summer evening. So, I've seen crafts that I'm sure are government tech, and then I've seen other things too that I'm sure are not.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Listen to this. I saw a dogfight over my house 6 months ago.
Okay.
Up in the high atmosphere. There was a light moving.
Yeah.
Didn't think much of it. Thought it's moving quite fast. That doesn't look like an airplane. Firstly, there's no flashing light, and it's not going in the direction that it should. It's going out that way. I've never seen a flight. You get used to the flight paths.
Okay.
Never seen an airplane going, and it was in the evening.
Yeah.
Then suddenly I noticed. First, I thought, is it a satellite? I was like, no ways, it's going really fast and it's going the wrong direction. Then I noticed another light coming that way, and I thought that's interesting. And then I saw, hey, there's another light. Then I thought, hey, there's another light following. There were 3 lights, and I noticed they were closing in on the first light, and the first light was going that way, and the other lights were getting closer and closer and closer. And I was like watching this, going, what am I watching? And then suddenly, the light in the front flashed up like an explosion in high altitude.
Hmm.
And then the other 3 lights broke off and went back the way they'd come. And I was like, was that a dogfight? Did I just witness something getting blown up? And I was
Yeah.
like, are those like fighter jets having a fight at high altitude that nobody knows about? Or is that something else? To this day, I don't know.
Wow, that's cool. Do you think that do you think that you you as a shaman with your shamanic awareness, do you think you're privy to seeing certain things that, you know, let's say non-shamanic people are? Because like your story about the orb in the woods, I mean, it kind of seems like, you know, that thing was like, you know, hey, what's, you know, what are you guys doing, and came to check it out. And maybe, you know, because of um your lack of fear response, that was, you know, maybe that was also calming in a way to the orb, you know, where it was like it could chill out too, and it just wanted to like check out and see what's going on, and then kind of went on its way. So do you think that you can see things that others can't?
Well, I know I can see things that others can't, but that orb was seen by my girlfriend did have ESP as well, but her friend didn't.
Right.
So there were 3 people, and her friend was quite random. It was just a friend who'd come to spend some time with her.
Yeah.
And so the fact that she saw it, she was like freaked out and afraid. My ex wasn't that scared. She was just holding on to my arm, like close to me. But she, you know, she sort of trusted me, you know.
Yeah.
So like figured that I would sort it out, whatever it was. No, she wasn't afraid. But so in that instance, I'm pretty sure that if 100 people have been there, 100 people would have seen it. But that is something that I've observed, that I will see things that other people don't see, but that will normally be something else. That will be non-physical things, if that makes sense. Like I'll notice these little things flying around, flying in little circles, very small things. And you can call them fairies, you can call them whatever you want, but they do these funny little spirals and they fly, and you see them out the periphery of your vision, and they're like little flying things that fly around like epicenters of little wormholes, what they seem like tiny little energetic zones. And I can only really spot those when I really open my vision and I start to open myself to seeing the prana, where you can see everything flashing and all the dots vibrating and all these little things like popping in and out of space. It's like tiny, tiny little dots that are coming and going really fast. It's almost like the universe is vibrating, and there's a kind of a luminosity and a light behind everything. And around plants, they'll have like patterns. So when I open myself to etheric vision, that's when I can see these other things, which I'm sure other people can't see. Although my mom has been on the mountain with me, and when I've opened my etheric vision when I'm walking, just because I enjoy to look at the auras of plants, then because you can see colors when you start to zone your eyes out like this, you start to see hazes of color around living things. And my mom noticed them too. My mom was like, what are these little things I'm seeing out of the corner of my eye? But my mom's also sensitive. When I used to notice that I wasn't alone, and I'd see like a shadow moving in the corner of my eye, and I'd want to look, and I'd get the impression of like an older lady there, my mom would be looking, and I'd see her getting nervous. And ever since I was a child, she was able to see And when I spoke to her about it, she said that the hair on her neck would raise, and she had a feeling it was her grandmother. And so, she's always been able to see things. So I think you're right. Some people might have a predisposition towards being able to see things that aren't obvious.
Yeah, I think that it can also be trained, because when we first started communicating, when I was in Colorado, and um, I think it was around when it was through the winter. What was it, like 2 or 3 winters ago? Um, and the way my house was set up, I could sit. So I would get up early in the morning. My child was very young, so our sleep patterns were all over the place. But I was getting up very early, and I would sit in front of my back sliding door window, and the sun, and I'd be looking directly east, and the sun would rise, and I was sun gazing like almost every morning. I was sun gazing, um, and we were talking, and I was listening to your videos, and I very 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 clearly remember, uh, it probably happened a couple of times, but sun gazing and seeing that those shimmering dots that you just described everywhere, and that was really cool. And
That's called prana in India.
yeah, yeah, I saw that. I hope I can. It's really hard to sun gaze here because of how cloudy it is and overcast, and there's so many trees in the way, and um, I'm just not situated in the right way. But hopefully, I can get back to that, because it was just like the sun gazing was just an amazing way to start the morning. Like like I don't know if I ever saw anything in the colors around the sun, but it was just I really look forward to seeing them, you know, and you it really felt like the energy of the sun was like literally like flowing into my eyeballs, into my body, and I remember I remember um, so even before talking to you, I would sun gaze, and there was I was in California, and I was in the deserts around God, what is it called? Around Vegas, basically. And I was watching the sun set, and so I was doing some like stretching and stuff like that, watching the sun set, and it was getting lower and lower and lower, and I'm just like full on just like staring at it, and it literally my felt like my eyeballs were like 5 times bigger, and there was a vibration coming from the back of my eyeballs forward. It was really intense.
Yeah, the sunset is a very different experience.
Yeah.
And that makes a lot of sense because you're now becoming aware of your chakras.
Mm,
And the other one, you're becoming aware of the prana
mm,
that's going to fill the chakras. So in the sunset, it's interesting. It's like it's the time of the astral energy, and but when the astral energy is flowing, you become aware of the spinning vibration energy. But when the sunrise, it's the etheric form, the etheric energy that you're seeing. So the etheric energy tends to be more, you're seeing objective, sort of, you objectively perceive instead of subjectively, which is
that's
rather interesting.
yeah, that makes sense because like when in the morning time, it's like clarity. It's just like cool white light, just kind of clearing everything up. It's really great.
You can still access that, by the way, easily if you coordinate your efforts. So during the time that the sun is setting and during the time that the sun is rising, what you want to do is you want to be able to look at trees or plants with the sky as a backdrop. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah,
Even
I'm
if
looking
you're
at it.
looking up, yeah, you want to be able to see that monochrome backdrop and see the plant and the tree and look around it, and you'll notice that around the tree there's more activity. And once you start to see that activity, and you become aware that it's got like a rhythm to it, like a kind of a frequency. Once you start to tune into that frequency and you see that, then you notice that frequency is actually everywhere. It's just less out there. And then you can look at any patch of sky and you can see, actually, you can still see those there. There's just less of it, not around a living object.
Hmm.
So that time of day is really powerful for learning to see that life force, prana. And in the evenings, one's going to become more in tune with magnetic currents. In the morning, one's going to become more in tune with electrical currents.
Hmm.
So the one is like magnetic gravitational, the other one is electric objective.
Nice. So in the evenings, um, is usually when people like to light fires. I like to. We have a fireplace. I like to make a fire, and to weave it, to weave our conversation back to uh, your earlier journeys. You were at a haunted lake, and you were tending to a fire that you had built as a well, as a I believe like a temple to Agni, and you were describing I guess climbing up the hills around the lake and tipping over trees to get the firewood. And
Getting
yeah,
a fulcrum.
yeah. Um, I've never actually heard anybody getting firewood that way. um, and apparently, the locals were aware of this place and did not dare to venture around it. But you said you had found. So you heard that and you were immediately like, yes, I will go there because that's how you are. And you said you found, I believe, like you found like a temple structure or something like that you cleaned up. And
It was
uh,
a bit dilapidated
what? So
because
what
no
was
one had.
what
Yeah,
was that temple? What was that temple? Was it
a
a temple?
Shiva temple.
A Shiva
Shiva
temple.
temple.
Mhm. Who built it?
It was what was left of a Shiva temple, and it was an old ashram with a
Okay.
little temple space and an ashram where some holy man had obviously lived at some point in the past. But there was a story about this lake that all the locals, like it was locals were scared of this place, and because there had been a holy man that had lived there some time in history, and the local villagers had come down and they had sent him out of his body. They had ended his existence.
Why?
And at the don't know the full story. Um, but that's the story that there was a Babaji, a Shiva Babaji living there,
Mhm.
and some local villagers had offed him, and he had gone into a samadhi, which is like becoming perfected. And at that point, when they did that, an upward flooding of that water flooded upwards and flooded all the local villages. Like all the groundwater came up and flooded all those villages. So that was the story. It's called Luacham Tal. And Luacham Tal, the, the other stories that I'd heard was that the government had sent some research center there to research this place because it was like a place of interest. And they couldn't ascertain the depth. They couldn't ascertain the depth. And weird stuff was happening. They were having accidents. People were like passing away. Also, the equipment was failing. They got more equipment. The equipment was failing. They were having more accidents. Some people were losing their minds. Like they were all like to the point where they actually decided they can't do this, and they packed up shop and they left without completing their mandate.
Mhm.
So those were the stories around this place. And obviously, when I heard these stories, I was like, and then I heard that there was a dilapidated ashram there. I said, "Ooh, dilapidated ashram! It sounds like a home. I want to go and check this out." So I went to check it out, and I like moved some rocks around, made it sort of doable, and rebuilt a new dona, a nice big fire dona. Dona is a name for a fire pit. Built a big one, and there was lots of slate. Like chipped the slate to pieces and built the slate in to make like a square meter cube fireplace, like in a meter deep, a meter, a meter, a meter, a cube. And once I'd built my cube, lit the fire, and that was it. That fire's not going out. This is where I'm staying. And so yeah, I spent a long time there meditating on the fire. Very interesting when you're meditating on fire.
Tell me about it.
I learned to scry with fire there because I was like with my fire every day, staring into the flames. And so, like, I'd learned to scry with water, like, decades before, and crystal balls and clouds and, looking on the edge of a water face,
And what is
on a
scrying?
pond. Yeah, scrying is when you allow yourself to see things. You look at an edge. You could do it with a piece of. You could do it with a mirror. You could do it with an obsidian, the black obsidian. You could stare at the obsidian until you start to see images inside the obsidian, or into a crystal ball, or a bowl of water, or a body of water, or the clouds, because there's water in the air. And you can stare and you'll see pictures, and then you see into the pictures, you'll see more until you'll be having a conversation with someone in the clouds or in the water. Or so I realized, wow, fire. Oh, you can scry with fire. Didn't know you could scry with fire. I'd never spent that much time with fire before. Spent a lot of time with water. So it was like a powerful fire initiation for me to really get to know fire in an intimate way. And obviously the fire is moving, and you're looking into the movement of the fire, and you start to see things in the fire. Interesting story. Did I mention that at a village not so far from there, people tried to off me?
So we haven't gotten there yet.
Well, I had, after I was there. So shall I continue with the story, or do you want to ask specific questions?
Uh, well, so I guess I really love this part of your life just because of how, to me, romantic it seems. Where you hear about this lake where there's no one around it, and there's a dilapidated ashram, and you go there and you stay there, and you learn fire scrying, and it the way you describe the lake, it seems like, I guess, a like a energy center, like a point of energy on the earth, maybe a confluence of ley lines, or something like that, and the way that you describe the lake, it sounds like the lake is tapped into what I've heard is something like prime water, like there's prime water under the earth, where it's like all the water of the earth, that's where it comes from. It comes from deep, deep within the earth, and it comes up, and it's like, it's just pure. It's like 100% pure, and it retains, the water retains all the memory of all the ages, and maybe this lake is like tapped into that, and it's upwelling, it's coming out, and it attracts it attracts things, it attracts energies, and it attracted this Babaji, and it's like it attracted you, and you went there and you learned things, and it's like you just have to be courageous and be aware and like just do the thing, and just it's really that's really cool. And so I guess what did you like? You said you were scrying with the fire. It's like, what do you like what did you learn? Like, what did you take away anything from that experience?
Well, okay, there were a number of things.
Yeah.
When I got there, they were like angry spirits,
Okay.
and I used to swim in the lake every day,
Yeah.
and like the angry spirits wanted to drown me,
Mhm.
and I felt like I was there to tame them. It's sort of something that I do. It's like work, work related, like poltergeists. I'll,
Yeah.
I'll I'll go and camp in your home if you got poltergeist.
Mm.
Like just me in the home alone at night, lights off in the dark. Let's meet. Let's
Yeah.
do this. So that skill set I learned there because I had come there and there were these presences, and I was like, okay, you're here. Well, I'm here now.
Mm.
Huh. So the things are going to change. Like that was the basic premise. Things are going to change here. And so I spent a lot of time meditating there. Obviously, I was there for, you know, I would say 500 hours of meditation,
Mm.
a number of months.
Okay.
And while I was in deep states of consciousness, I would notice the presences around the lake and the presences there and the energies. And I felt like I was somehow there to tame that space, to like re-imprint on the sacred. You were right about that water. There was a very powerful kundalini connection with that water. The water brought the kundalini forth. And so I found that riveting, that when I swam across that lake, that the fear in me would spring up and I'd get an opportunity to feel my fear. I was like, oh, this is interesting. So I was like, oh, this is going to be a practice. This is going to be my daily thing. And except when it got really, really too cold, then I didn't do it because it was the weather got quite challenging, rainy and cold and sleet and ice and sort of stuff like that. And the climate was harsh. It was cold at night. I was cold a lot, cold all the time. I had to learn to deal with the cold. I had these brews that I would make of a plant called I forget what it's called. It's a Shiva gel plant. It was called Nirkundi, was one of the names. And it's like that three plant that you see on Shiva's throat. And I'd been taught by another Himalayan shaman about this plant and its uses. And so I used to go and find this plant and brew it and make myself a tea. And I would drink it and it would make me feel really nauseous. And I would just meditate on the nauseousness and it would pass. And then my body would get really warm. And then I had the heat in my body to go up, to climb up the side and collect wood. Because there were big pieces of wood up there that I couldn't move. So I'd have to be strategically look up the hill and go, okay, there's a piece I can get up there. And then I'd have to find like a fulcrum and wedge it down and, find bits. And so I'd have to go quite high up the side of like steep ravines and knock these things down and they smash as they broke down. And then I'd go and collect pieces that broke off it.
So,
And
real quick, I just want to comment on that thing that what you just said about you learned about the tea, you found the plant, you made it, and you drank it. You went through a little trial with the nauseousness, and then you reap the benefits of it by feeling this fire, which legitimately made you warm enough to be able to do this work. That that right there is an aspect of human experience that I think we're all sorely missing from this life right now, and that has in a way been taken away from us by all of our modern conveniences. But it like it still exists, like it's still there. You can still do this, do that sort of thing. So I just wanted to say that because that's like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, very hard stuff to drink, very bitter, very strong, but very powerful. And if you, when people were sick and they came to me, because I started, okay, I'll get to that point later. So, um, I was at this space and I felt like I was getting towards the end of my time here because suddenly the space had become very peaceful and the spirits were like at peace. They'd accepted me. They were like, now, okay, this is like the energy had changed there. And there was a lot of datura growing
Right.
everywhere. Everywhere. Yeah.
Interesting. That's psychedelic, isn't
Everywhere.
it?
Malpita, very strong. There were two different types of datura. I had been taught by this Nepali shaman about the Kali datura and the Shiva datura. And the Shiva datura is the white one. They've spiky kind of plants with these seeds in it. And the black one is the Kali datura, which is very strong. And these datura were becoming fully ripe. They were ready. No, no. They were called datura by the guy who had taught me about it, but they were spiky plants that they called malpita. Have you heard of malpita?
No, how's that spelled?
They seeds that you eat. And it looks like a kind of a hand grenade thing. This is why I'm saying it's not those flowers that we know. It's a different thing. But this is what the guy had taught me up there. So I had harvested the Kali datura, a lot of it. And they're like little tiny black seeds. Now, normally people would take like 20 or 25 seeds and brew a tea with it. And the thing about this, the guy had warned me. Interesting. Yes, but it was like a more. It looked different. It was like almost like a cup, a round thing that would hang. But it had become ripe, and it had black. There was two. The one was like black. The one was white
Hmm.
with these kind of spikes in it. And you would open it up and collect all the seeds. And there was this everywhere. I collected a bag of Kali Datura. I was like, wow, it's a gold mine. I got like a supply for the rest of my life. You never know when I'll need it. And I spent a lot of time with my fire. And at one point, another Babaji who had traveled through there, who I knew, there were two other Babajis who lived in those mountains who I'd gotten to know. He had taken me to meet a man who had cancer because this guy who had cancer had asked him, like he had said, he heard there was this this white shaman guy living here in this place, and this guy was like dying. And so I'd gone to meet him, and there was like a really powerful empathy and a connection with this guy and his boys, and he had cancer, and he was in a lot of pain. And I met him, and I spent some time with him and his family, and actually felt a connection. Then I came back to my zone, and I felt this like I needed to do some work with this guy. And then I noticed the moon alignment and the Venus and the moon aligning. I thought, powerful time for energy work. He has this black datura. I thought, that's interesting. So I made myself a very powerful brew of the black datura, and I drank it. And I was like, okay. And I drank more of it. I was like, okay. And so I made another brew another big brew. And because with these Malpiti, you can find one seed that's got 1,000 seeds hit in it. So anyway, bottom line story, I probably had like about 30, 40, 50 or 100 doses of this stuff, what people normally would have. And I started to feel the nasa of it becoming powerful. And I was like, ah. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to go to sleep and dream. But I decided to dream while I was awake with my eyes open. So I sat meditating on my fire, and I left through my eyes and traveled through the fire to him. And I traveled through his body till I got to the cancer. And I saw this cancer, and I saw it, and it was horrendous experience. It was horrendous. I was like, am I ready for this? This is heavy, man. Like I traveled through his body, and I came face to face with that stuff, and I was like, wow, that's something hectic. Like it's like a foreign body in the body. It's like a foreign being living in the body.
Mm.
And then I came back to my body, like out of the fire, back into myself. And I didn't sleep. I meditated, like, so my eyes were open the whole time. And I think I overdid it. I must have sat meditating in front of my fire for like 12 hours or more, maybe 14 hours. I don't know how long I sat there. And I pushed myself really hard because I wanted to understand. I wanted to heal this man. And then I started seeing his karma and his past, and like I realized there was a complex story here. It's not as simple as just face this thing. No, this thing is intricately a part of him, part of his choices, part of his lifestyle, part of his relationship with his family. And he was a very God-fearing, godly man. God-fearing is in afraid of karmic stuff, but there was like a harshness to him, which I saw in his younger years when that he was reaping that harshness. Like it came back to haunt him. And it put the fear, put the shocked me. Like, wow, like don't go and try and play God. Things are the way they are for a reason. And obviously I wasn't alone. I was in communion with other spirits that were sort of showing me this, and the divine feminine presence was talking to me. And I came out of this and I went blind. I went blind. Like I couldn't see. And so I was like, okay. So I just meditated all the time. I was like, okay, well, it is what it is. And some part of me was afraid, like, will I be able to see again? And I could barely see anything. And it took a long time for my vision to come back. After weeks, I started to see a little bit. And it took like many weeks before I could really see properly again. So it was like some kind of a purification for me being in this space. And I realized that my eyes was because I had taken too much of this medicine.
Yeah.
You see, I was always, if I ever had medicine, I would always be like, well, how much do you take? Okay, 10 times. That was ridiculous. I was like, I wanted to know the end of the story. I didn't want to like go on the little, I wanted to see the whole thing. So that was sort of a part of me. And I realized I poisoned my liver and my eyes. And I was like, okay, so this is an issue with my liver and my eyes. And I've poisoned my pancreas, and I've like done some harm to my organs. And I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to meditate and allow things to go back to balance. And so it was a slow process. Things returned back to balance. And after then, I was super empowered. and it was time to let the fire go out that had been like kept going for so long. There was like a very powerful saying goodbye to my friend, the fire, become like a friend. And then I journeyed over the next couple of mountains, hills, and everybody knew me. Like, oh, you're that Babaji that was meditating at that place, because news had traveled of me. And traveling over the mountains, I ended up at another place, which I had known. Now, before I'd left, let me backtrack. I had a dog with me, Shakti. Remember, I mentioned
Yeah.
Shakti had um, had basically burnt her feet.
Hmm.
She had fallen into the fire pit one night. And I woke up, there was this alarm. Ooh, 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 and I was like, what's going on? And half asleep, I'm seeing this thing going round and round. And then I noticed that's my dog going round and round in the fire pit. And so I smacked her, smacked her out of the fire pit, like swept her up with my hand, quickly just clapped her like right out of the fire pit because I was like half asleep. I was like
Yeah.
shocked. And so she had these burnt paws. So I was having to like carry her to take her to pee, carry her to get water, carry her everywhere.
Hmm.
It was like her valet service. And she wouldn't stop licking her feet. And I was trying to wrap it. I was putting medicine on it. I had turmeric, I had all sorts of things, and it just wasn't working. It ended up starting to get infected, and I was really afraid. So I had, and at that point, the Nepali Babaji that I knew had arrived, and he stayed with me for a while I was there. And he was the one who was saying to me, yeah, look, you can get antibiotic powder at that town, but it's a whole long journey. And I was like, okay. So he was going to stay in the ashram and tend the Agni Puja while I went away for like a day or two to sort this out. So I had to strap Shakti over my neck because she was a big dog, right? She was a German Shepherd.
Hmm.
So I had to carry her like over my neck like a scarf and climb the mountains, get out of the mountains and climb over. And climbing over the mountains, I came through a village and everybody knew me. They were like, oh, you're that guy. Wow. And they saw me carrying this dog over my neck. And I actually scared some of them because I was traveling in the middle of the night in the dark through the dark forest, climb the mountain. And a group of people were moving with a torch and they screamed. They thought I was a ghost because I came out of the darkness with a dog over my neck. And they were like, because I was so used to traveling in the dark without light. And because you can see in the dark if you train your eyes.
Yeah.
So they saw this coming out of the like pitch darkness of the night, this guy appearing. And they were like, oh, it's you. And they freaked out. They ran away. Then they stopped. I was like, koi baat nahi, ठीक ho gaya, main defta nahi hoga,
Huh.
and explained to them, I'm not a ghost. Relax. And then they were like explaining to me that I wouldn't be able to go to the next village, to that place where there wouldn't be a jeep there because the roads had collapsed. And so anyway, I traveled through that village and I met some of these people, and they said, when you come back, come and see us, visit us. We want to get to know you because we've heard so much about you. And they were like, they wanted us to spend some time there, and I was like, no, I've got to take my dog. Got to go. So I went to the place called Krishna Dukan, which is the guy's name was Krishna, and he had a shop as a Dukan. He had a tiny little Dukan, and that was where the jeep would come randomly when it came.
Yeah.
And so I had to camp there for, and he was a really lovely guy. He said, "Oh, you can stay here. I've got like a little roof for you. Like you can chill, but the jeep's not coming. The jeep might come tomorrow. The jeep didn't come tomorrow, and then the jeep the next day. And I was tending my dog's wounds,
Mhm.
and then the jeep came, and we went to down the jeep road, and it took us to a place called Halfani, and there I was able to go to a pharmacy kind of a shop and get antibiotic powder, which I could treat the wounds with,
Mhm.
which was commonly available. And the antibiotic powder was basically what the dog needed, because that would basically kill all the infection, and they just keep it treated with antibiotic powder until and some neem and bitter essence so that they wouldn't want to lick it,
Mhm.
the smell and the taste.
Yeah.
So um, then I had to journey back with my dog, and anyway, came back and settled down, and Shakti healed up. She was fine.
Mhm.
And the Nepali Baba went off, you know, and Kisigiri. He was the Giri lineage from the Juna Akara tribe of Shivites. The Juna Akara tribe is from Pashupati in the oldest Shiva temple on earth, which is a series of Shiva temples, which is Pashupatinath, which is on the outside of um, the valley of Kathmandu. So, and Junakara are a very devout form of sadhu, and but he had been with a Nepali shaman, so he had learnt shamanic lore, you know, and he had been of the lineage of the Junakar, very connected to all the different the shamanic tribe and the Akara tribe is connected. They use rice for divination, and instead of stones or runes, they use rice, and they charge the rice up with power and throw the rice at evil spirits.
Hmm.
Um, so anyway, I came back and like was doing the closing ceremony, and then traveled through. Didn't know where I was going. Was just sort of going through the mountains to see where this takes us. And got to the next village, and everybody was like celebrating the arrival. The whole village came out, and everybody was like freaking out, saying, "Look, there's a special puja time coming. Please stay here for this puja time for darshan." And one of the farmers there said, "Look, I've got this um, little like hut, which is right down there next to the river, where I've got a grinding wheel that runs on the water. But at the moment, there's nothing to grind, and there won't be anything to grind for a long time. So that hut is empty. Go and stay in the hut." And I was like, okay. And so I went to the hut, and everybody started coming. Everybody started coming to see me from far away. Like I'd become like, I don't know, a folklore tale
Hmm.
or a story. Everybody wanted to know, who's this guy who lived at this place that everybody's scared of,
Mhm.
because I'd lived there for long and everybody knew me, and they'd see me from the top mountains when they walked in. I'd be naked going into the lake every day, and they were like that's not normal. Nobody goes into that lake. Like this guy is something else. Like he must have some like superpowers or something just to go in that lake. So I had all this darshan coming, and I would sit in front of my fire wherever I was. I'd make a fire and I'd meditate on my fire, and they'd just come and sit with me. And sometimes I'd go into trance and I'd give them messages. And so then they went off, and then their village found out, and other villages found out, and then the other ones came and said, "Oh, they know this guy who knows him," and I gave them messages. Please, they need like messages. So I had all these people coming to me, and some people coming to me when they were sick. They needed like advice, they needed healing, they needed medicine, or whatever. And so I had all this darshan coming, like day and night. And then I noticed some people, they would walk through the mountains for like days to come and see me. And I was like, what? You've been walking through the mountain for like 3 days to come and see me? Are you kidding? Like doesn't add up. And so I spent a long while there, and I was meditating on my fire, and I saw some disturbing stuff. And there was someone from the Singh family and someone from the Ram family. And I saw in the fire that they had done something despicable. And a family had left the world because of this. And a child. And they had done stuff to the woman after killing, disposing of the husband. And then offing the whole family and the child and everybody, and burning down the house with everybody in it. And it was very disturbing. And so I started speaking to the people in the village, and because I'd been shown in the vision where this place was. And I said to the people, there's like a place that burnt up there. I want to go there. And somebody in the village said, I'll take you there. And I went up there to see the place, and it was the place. What was left of the place. And so the story there was a husband and a wife and a child that had basically passed away in that fire.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew who was responsible. And I was like, well, I know for a reason. I was shown this for a reason. So I started to speak in the village, and I spoke to these two guys, and I said, I know what you did. You might have gotten away with it, but you haven't gotten away with it. Because I know. I know, Shiva knows, Kali knows, we all know. And these guys got afraid. And it was Navratri coming. And the Navratri festival, in fact, it was during the Navratri festival that this had all come to pass. At the end of the Navratri festival, when I'd had this experience, and I'd been meditating all the time, and I'd made a big bonfire. Navratri out there was like a 9-day festival, honoring the 9 aspects of the divine feminine. As the consort of Shiva, Shakti. And so I was meditating, and someone set me on fire. So there was a guy who got possessed by a spirit. And there was like a whole lot of people there, and they've got these big metal drums that's like shaped like a bowl, but it's metal and it's huge. And he basically went and scooped up all the coals and the burning fire and this big chunk of the fire, because it was a huge bonfire. And he picked it up, because you can pick up a fire and carry a fire like that.
Okay.
This huge bowl, and move it to over there. And then it's like a mobile fireplace.
Yeah.
And he tipped it on top of me while I was sitting in either Siddhasana or Padmasana. I can't remember what asana I was sitting in. Probably Siddhasana. It's a meditation posture. And so like my clothes caught fire, and my beard burnt, and my hair was burning, and everything was on fire. And I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I just kept. I didn't let it break my flow. And because I wasn't afraid. Like, it just, in that moment, I was very high. I was very like in tune with the energy, and I could feel the energy of the fire, and I was like, well, that fire's not going to hurt me. And because I was in a trance, listening to the rhythm of the fire. And the rhythm of the fire is like music. I was like being carried in this rhythm. And because the fire's got a rhythm to it, dancing. It's like a dancing rhythm. And then more and more people started coming, because then Okay, like I was uninjured, and everybody was like amazed. Like this is like some kind of Shiv Shakti. Everybody was freaking out. So then the darshan got ridiculous. Then there were queues, and everybody was coming, and they were all bringing gifts, bags of rice, bags of wheat, bags of potato, wanting to give me money. I was like, I don't want money. They bring me food from their farms, and they want to come and sit with me and do darshan, just sit with me. And some people get messages, and they just want to come and be in my presence. And I was just meditating in my fire, and so I became like, I don't know, really well known, extremely well known up there in the mountains. And then people were coming from, like I say, 3 days and 4 days away. And that was when I was getting into very deep trance because I was meditating a lot. And I'd have these groups of people that would come sit around me, and I'd be meditating, and I'd feel all the consciousness and energy of everybody around me. And I'd be sort of like carrying all of this with me while I was moving through like energy, and sort of like carrying someone in a way. and so then my trance got deeper and deeper, and that's when I saw what I saw. And at first I didn't know what to do because I knew this is serious. This is going to have consequences. But like ethically, I had to say something. I had to do something. And so I started confronting the village. I said, "You guys all know what happened with that family up there. Let's not pretend you don't know. I can read it in your energy. I can read it in your minds. I know you know. I know you know. I know you know. I know you know. I can see it in your eyes. I can feel it in your heart. I can feel it in your soul. The Shakti has come to show me everything. I've seen it all happen, and I know who knows. Now I want to know why you allowed it. You all consider yourself to be godly people and to be worshipping the spirit. But this happens, and everybody turns a blind eye to it. Are you afraid of these two people that did this?" And so I spoke to the wife of one of the men who had done this. And I explained to her, like, you know what's going on. And she knew. And then the one day, these two families with some group of people came with sickles, and they wanted to make me leave the world. And I got up, and I had a staff that I'd carved out of a special thorn tree. I had wet it, straightened it out, made it into a staff, extremely hard, treated it on the fire. I had carved my 108 names into it, empowered it. I'd hollowed out the top. I'd put a sacred object into the top of the staff. And so I stood up with my staff, and I had written all of the names in white, the 108 names that were on the staff, coiling around it like a serpent. And I'd put the whole of the tree of life into the staff, the energy. And I took up my staff and I said, "You want to try and off me? Do your best. But Shakti's with me." And they got scared. And this group of people got like really afraid, like, "No, no, no, we don't." And I said, "Come, you want to come with your sickles? Do you think I'm scared? Do you think I'm afraid of you? Do you want to see what happens when the spirit enters into somebody and what they're capable of? Do you want to see?" And so the people got afraid, and they left. And it was getting like quite like intense, and I'd made a lot of waves. And I'd reprimanded all the so-called Brahmin people in the village and saying, "You're the so-called elders in this village and you've done nothing. You know what happened. It's not even a secret. And you guys all helped to just silently allow it to happen. And there was a family, and this happened like 8-9 years ago. You all know about it. You've been living with this secret sin, this dark secret in your village." So I basically reprimanded the whole village. And I wiped my feet and I said, "I'm leaving this place. I can't handle this karmic energy in this space. I'm going, but I'm leaving you with this warning of the spirit. This is not finished. And this village is touched by what has happened. And all of you will bear this karma because you all know of it. And I was leaving, and these two guys, the perpetrators, were on top of a rock. You walked through, there was a huge boulder, like a double story house boulder. You couldn't see on top of it because the path would lead you through like a tree patch, and you'd come out and you'd walk underneath this boulder. And all the village people were watching us go from a distance. And many of them were like waving to us and bye, but like there was this weird air in the village. And they could all see the guys on the top of the boulder holding boulders. And as we walked, I got like this sense, and I looked up and I saw these two guys like with boulders about to drop big boulders on us, big rocks. And I flew into a trance and I hurled names with my staff because I charged it up with a lot of energy. I hurled names at them and they fell backwards and they dropped their boulders. And behind the boulder there was like fields. And I walked back away from the rock, and I had my ex-wife with me. She was also a practitioner, and my dog. And I saw them crawling in the bushes. Not the bushes, the fields. They were like bushes in the right word. Fields with flowers, and they were crawling like children, smiling, and they were like DMT, whatever. Like they were like on another planet. I don't even. I to this day don't know whether they came back from that. They might have been like children for the rest of their life. I don't know. And then I turned around and I saw like the whole village watching, and they were like afraid because they just seen what happened. That I'd used words. These two guys that basically the words knocked them off their feet. And I turned around to the crowds and I admonished them all. And I pronounced something which I was not happy about. I said, "This is a curse upon all of you, that you all stood there watching, ready to watch us demise." And I said, "Shakti is with me and she's watching all of you now, and you are all marked. You, your children, their children, you are all marked by what has happened today." And basically these guys had tried to off us.
Yeah.
And so we left this place. We were leaving. And then the word of what had happened had spread. And everywhere we went, people were afraid. They would close their doors and go into their homes. It was very weird. But not everybody. Some people were like not afraid. And they would come to us and say, "Wow, we heard what happened. Please come to our farm. Please come and spend the night at our farm. You've got a long journey ahead of you. There's nothing out that way. You're going to climb mountains for days." And so we met like different people along the way, and families, and it was sort of like a closing chapter for that part of the mountain. But I met people many years later, like 1,000 kilometers across the Himalayas, that knew me from there, that heard. And when they met me, they were like, and I told them where I was. They said, "Are you the white Shiva guy with the dog?" And I was like, yeah, I had the dog." They said, "You had a German Shepherd?" I said, "Yes." "And you had your wife with you?" I said, "Yes." "Your wife was your Chelly. She was like my student as well, in a sense, because I'd been teaching her and initiating her into how to use spiritual force. And she was the only person I'd actually really initiated. I'd learnt my lesson. But because it's a big deal to open those psychic centers. And so I was like really well known across all of those mountains from those things, because those stories traveled. A lot of those stories traveled.
Mm.
And so we then moved to a different part. We went further up the Himalayas towards Almora. And I found an ashram there where there was a lady who was the pujari of that place. And she had a temple up there and she had an ashram behind the space. And when I came, she was like, wow, like she was drawn to us. And because we'd gone up there to see that temple because it's a very old Shiva temple. And obviously I got to the temple and I liked the energy. So I sat down and meditated for, I don't know, like 5 hours, 6 hours, whatever. And she was like, wow, you're like real, you know? I've got an ashram space. Do you want to stay in that ashram? It's behind the temple. And I was like honored. I was like, thank you. And because a lot of people come to the temple for darshan. And so I was able to do my morning oblations in that temple and practice my dhyana in that temple. And so we stayed in Almora for a while until a funny story. Are you ready for a funny story?
One more story.
Okay. So anyway, the reason I left Almora, been staying there for a long time, went down into the town, inspired to go down into the town.
Yeah.
And in the town, I was given a gift.
Seeds.
Yeah, Rudraksha. This particular mala was given to me.
Wow.
And I'd also gotten another mala. And I wanted to consecrate my mala. So I found a place where there weren't a lot of people. And we sat down and started meditating and going into a dhyana. And then I started japaing with mantra. And so I went off. And at some point, there were like people trying to talk to me. But I was like, I'm busy. Like I'm not gonna acknowledge what's going on out there. I'm in here, you know. And so what had happened was people that were the visa officers had found these two white people sitting there.
Yeah.
And they were talking to my ex-wife at the time, saying like, can you get him to talk to us? And she was like, no, I don't disturb him when he's doing this.
Yeah.
So they stood there waiting for about an hour and a half to talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
And in that time, a crowd gathered. And they wanted to disturb me. And a huge crowd this is India, crowds can like, somehow a crowd had suddenly gathered and there was a big crowd there. And I like came out of my trance. I'm witnessing what's going on here. It's this huge crowd of people.
Yeah.
And there's these guys, and the crowd was getting aggressive towards these people.
Oh.
The crowd was maybe going to get violent towards these people.
Oh, wow.
Because these people wanted to mess with us and disturb us. And the crowd was, you do not mess with these people. These are holy people. Some of the crowd knew that these are like people staying in that ashram. These are godly devotees. You don't mess with them.
Mm-hmm.
And like this guy is a shaman, and like you do not. And so these people were there trying to do their job. And so I had to intervene. I had to stop and say, whoa, wait, leave them. You guys can come talk to me, because like the crowd was starting to get aggressive towards these people. That's what pulled me out of my trance.
Yeah.
The crowd was going to like beat these guys up.
Oh, gosh.
Mob. And so I was like, no, come talk to me. And they were like, so like, what's the story? I was like, what do you mean, what story? They were like, so what country are you from? And I was like, you seriously asking me this question? Like, really? I think you guys are wasting my time. We're not going to have this conversation. So they said, like, really, we need to have this conversation with you. So I said, okay. And so they said, let's go to the chief of police in this district. So I said, okay, we'll go to the chief of police. So we went to the chief of police. So he's the police chief. And these guys took me there because like the crowd was like freaking out at them. They were afraid. So anyway, I went to the chief of police and I sat down with him. And he was like, "So obviously you're like some kind of a sadhu or sannyasi. I can see. I've heard about you. Like we've heard about you. Um, and like, what about your passport?" I said, "What passport? I don't have a passport for many years. That thing's history. It's gone. Don't want one. Don't need one. Don't have one." So he was like, "Okay." And I was like, of course I don't have permission to be here. I don't need permission to be here. Right? I'm here. So he was really a nice guy. So he was like, okay. So he was explaining to me, I've got a problem. Because you're here and there was a huge crowd, this is now going to become a news story. And because I'm the chief of police, can I please ask you to go somewhere else? But I'm going to organize you transport, free transport to anywhere you want to go. Because I can't like arrest you. Because like we basically the police, they didn't want to get involved in this spiritual matters.
Yeah.
So then he was like, "Do you have charas?" Which is hashish.
Okay.
And I was like, "Yeah, I've got." He said, "How much you got?" I said, "I've got enough." He said, "How much you got?" I said, "I've got about 100 grams, maybe 150 grams." He said, "That's not enough." He said, "Can I give you another half a kilo?" I was like, "What am I going to do with a half a kilo?" He said, "Well, you might need hash, like, because this is the gift that gets given to holy men in India. Everybody comes to you and gives you hash. That's why I had all this hash. Everybody comes to me and they give me dash and they give me a piece of hash. I'm like, oh, thank you. Ball in art. Put that in a pouch." So I had this pouch of different samples of hash given to me from everybody that met me everywhere. They just come and give me hash. Like, okay, ball in art, you know? And then when I meet people who like some people there, oh, I would love to have some hash. Oh, I've got some. Yeah, you can have some. You know? So I was like a hash dispenser, just give it away to people. Or if I meet other Babajis and they're low on hash, I'd give them a handful. So there you go, you know, from Shiva. And so this is just how this works in the Himalayas. So anyway,
Nice.
and like I wasn't really smoking it much, right?
Uh-huh.
I'd only have it on a Monday. That was my rule. Only on a Monday. After 2 hours of meditation, I would have then meditate for another 2 hours and then have more and then play music and write poetry. So that was the only time I had it. And that was like the ritual way that I used it. So anyway, I was like, I don't really need all of that. He said, well, let me give you some of the best that we've got. And he gave me some like really nice squidgy and I added it to my collection. I just took a bit. I said, I don't need a lot. I I don't use a lot. You know, I don't want it. I'm trying to practice pranayama. You know, I want to make my lungs strong. So anyway, he organized a transport to take us further up the Himalayas. And he got a truck guy to stop. And the police gave the truck guy instructions like, you must take these guys there. The truck guy was like, cool, cool. So that was my story of Almora. Got to know the chief police. He was a nice guy.
Nice. That was a great story. Well, I think we'll stop there for now. I really appreciate you sharing all of that. It was really amazing, and we will continue on next time we talk.
Bolenat, brother. Thank you
So
for
much.
the opportunity to talk to you. I love talking to you. You're a magnetic person to talk to.
Thanks. Well, yeah, we're gonna talk. We're gonna keep on talking. Don't worry. There's so much to talk about.
Well, much love to you and to your family and your partner and your lovely little beautiful sunshine ray daughter. And I hope you enjoy the trees and look at the background of the sky over the
Oh,
trees and the
yeah.
plants,
I'll
even
try.
flowers. If you can see like the skyline in the background, you can look at them, you can hold them and move them and notice there's like little fields around them of little dots moving in patterns around them.
Hmm. All right. Until next time.
Big love, brother. Take it easy, and so much love to all of you. I hope you guys enjoyed my rambling and bambling,
Yeah.
and sending you all much love. Big
Thanks for
bless.
listening.